Hi, my name is Kristen Malachek, and I'm Miss Wheelchair Michigan 2015. But today, I'm speaking to you as just a person with a disability, on behalf of all Americans with disabilities. I was born with a neuromuscular disorder that causes wasting away of my muscles and severe overall weakness. Because of my extensive physical limitations, I need physical assistance with my day-to-day needs, like hygiene, getting dressed, getting in and out of bed, and so on. Not only do my needs apply within the walls of my home, but I need physical assistance to be able to access the community as well. I cannot drive because the type of hand controls a person with my level of physical limitations would need are extremely high-tech and expensive. We're talking about nearly $100,000 for a vehicle with these kinds of adaptations. Needless to say, most people with disabilities, including myself, cannot afford that, and since it's not considered a medical necessity, insurance does not cover it either. Therefore, I need other people to drive me to my destinations in the community, and oftentimes to help me at those destinations. Going grocery shopping, I usually need help getting things off shelves, loading the groceries into a cart, onto the checkout counter, and into my vehicle. I need help with buying food or drink and carrying it if I go to a ball game or a concert. I need assistance at a job with physical tasks, like reaching the copy machine or using the restroom if I need to go. So this might all seem really obvious so far, but what most people in the general public don't know is that people with disabilities like me have no inherent right to these services. These are publicly funded services, or Medicaid-covered services, in other words. Now, if a person became disabled in an auto accident, this is the general exception to the rule. Fortunately, in these cases, auto insurances usually cover the cost of a person's medical and personal care needs resulting from an accident. But for someone who is born with a disability, or who is injured in some other way, say a diving accident, personal care services are not covered under commercial insurance. As it stands, providers of public health services are who determine what amount of personal care services is necessary. Anything that can be deemed not medically necessary can then be denied. What the scope and duration of services is decided on then really boils down to one thing: money. If an agency can put the responsibility of care on what they call natural supports, which are basically people that aren't being paid for their help, usually family members or close friends, then they will use that to reduce the amount of covered services. So it's important to understand that this not only affects people with disabilities, but their family members and loved ones as well. Most people have to make a living to pay their bills. Imagine then having a child or a brother or sister who needed physical help and had no one else to depend on. Imagine having to try to work a full-time job and be available enough to them to ensure that they were properly cared for. Now imagine the strain this puts on people in this position, or the strain it puts on relationships between a person with a disability and an able-bodied partner. Even if you don't know anyone directly who is affected by this issue, let's look at it from a business perspective. Why should taxpayers, who aren't directly affected by this phenomenon, have to pay more money into taxes to cover these services for just this segment of the population? First of all, most people who become disabled later in life don't expect to. It can happen to anyone at any moment. But even if it doesn't, the money for these services and the money that pays for people like my medical needs, such as hospital stays or surgery, comes from the same pot, the same money people pay in taxes. But hospital stays and surgeries cost way more than personal care services do. If a person is unable to move or to reposition themselves at night, for instance, but they don't get enough personal care services to cover a night shift, they may risk getting what's called a bed sore. A bed sore can be life-threatening and often results in surgeries and long hospital stays. It isn't unusual for one bed sore to result in over $100,000 in medical costs. So which would you rather pay for with your tax dollars? Personal caregivers, who generally get paid an average of $9 an hour, or the accumulation of millions of unnecessary medical expenses resulting from a lack of adequate care? Another factor that affects the general public is that a lack of personal care assistance not only results in heightened medical expenses for those who need it, and thus heightened tax dollars, it also results in less people with disabilities entering the workforce. If people don't have adequate personal care services in the community, including at a job or to access an education to get a job, then they cannot work and have no choice but to depend on government sources like Social Security for money. Add that to tax expenses as well. There are many reasons why people that need personal care services ought to have the right to them. More than any, though, is the fact that social isolation is cruel. Before prisons or capital punishment, the worst sentence a person could receive was banishment. This was because the innate sense that a person's chance of survival is significantly reduced when socially isolated. But people who were denied adequate personal care services are still being punished this way. We can't allow this to continue. I propose that we demand the right for all people to have access to their community. This is going to take a grassroots effort. Sign my petition to make it federally mandated that people receive adequate services to access their community on a daily basis. Being a part of one's community is not a privilege, it's a right. Be a voice. Sign today.